Hello and welcome from the Bahrain International Circuit here in Sakhir. Down on the grid, the engineers are making their last checks and today's race will be underway shortly. Bahrain represents an exceptional 3.36 miles of racing. Lots of opportunities to overtake throughout its 15 corners. Now, this track has a reputation for being brutal on the rear tyres, so keep an eye on how these young drivers manage their rubber. Strategy here could ultimately determine the winner of this race. Davide, you're a three-time winner around here in 1 week, I believe, back in 2012. How on earth do you make the tyres last around this racetrack? They degrade so quickly.
To be honest, the key to the race is having a good start so you can get your car in
Oh
the
yeah,
position.
4 points.
Then save the tires as much as you can and push just at the end.
Let's take a look at the grid positions for today's race. Joker lines up on pole position, and Jack Aitken completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Alesi, Hubert, Callum Ilott, and Matsushita, King, Delatrat, Mazepin, Juan Manuel Correa, Boccolacci, Schumacher, Guan Yu Zhou, and Latifi, Raghunathan, Boschon, Giotto, and Sergio Sette Camara, Calderon, and Sean Galeo completes the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
So at this point, I had to decide essentially between running 1 pit stop or 2 pit stops. The AI is pretty good at picking out the best possible strategy. I ended up going with the default strategy number 1, where we'd run softs and then move on to the medium tires around lap 11. Just as a heads up, I have a highlight reel at the end of each race. If you're not interested in watching the full race, you can click the timestamps below and it'll take you to the highlights and you can move on from there, because I understand not everyone wants to watch a full race set.
Keep an eye on the lights. The start sequence will begin as soon as the grid has formed. Be ready with the clutch.
Alright, so decent start. A little bit slow. I get pressured by the cars on my left and right. They really force their way up, but luckily I'm able to hold my position here. And I can see the train in the rearview mirror kind of fading off into the back. It was a little bit of a rough start. But happily in the front, though you can see that I still haven't completely gotten used to this car. I'm slipping the rears out there a little bit. So there I got the temperatures up. Noticing that in this particular car, the brakes don't seem to get nearly as hot as the F1 cars. Obviously they're not stopping as hard.
Ooh, I took that a little wide.
That corner always causes me so much problem. Going flat out here. Still got second place. I think that's Mr. Atkin. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. Not after the first race. Easing off there. I noticed that the car feels very fat and full.
Okay. Driver behind.
Okay, copy that.
Driver behind. Oh boy. The only problem is the voice recognition doesn't always work.
Yeah, so
Driver behind.
Ilott, that's his name. So sometimes they don't give a whole lot of information. So just saying Ilott behind definitely didn't give me any information whatsoever in terms of, you know, if he was, you know, a couple tenths behind or half a second behind, which was the information I was looking for. Alright, coming up to the 100 here. Turn this corner. This is actually one of my favorite corners of the course. It's just super fun to drive.
More information.
Confirmed.
Yeah, so I wasn't really happy with the info they gave me on iLot, so I asked for more info. Hopefully that fixes it up a little bit. Locking that front right tire up. Playing without the assist definitely makes it a lot more challenging to hit your brake points correctly, and really got to manage.
I am surprised I'm taking out such a lead.
So I said it before, the AI, as I mentioned,
Ooh, that messed a corner up.
the AI wasn't set super high. I only had it at a 92. So definitely something I need to up in the next races. I think I can do faster. It's not like my race line's awful, but consistency seems to be an issue. So at this point, things are looking pretty decent. You can see the car there in the right mirror. I'm pulling out a bit of a gap.
Full race update.
You are in first position, front of the pack.
I'm also
Gap behind is 1.0 seconds. There are crash softs.
putting in the fastest lap of the race each time, which
Keep him out
is
of the DR. Ooh, DRS zone.
yeah. So those kind of mistakes you'll notice kind of keep creeping up. Unfortunately, not a whole ton to kind of commentate on while I'm sitting in front, but I guess I can talk about a couple of the things I noticed about this track, the car, and the game so far. Unfortunately, yeah. So this is becoming a sloppy lap. The tires are evolving a little bit. Second place is definitely capitalizing on the mistakes.
Control of this car.
And this lap alone, I've lost 1.5 seconds almost, 1.2. So definitely not looking good.
I'm getting my tire temperatures too high too.
My front tires are getting lit up, which is definitely making turning in a lot more challenging. Definitely have to go a little bit more easy around them corners.
Sliding all over the place like a skate park.
It's actually a really decent course. I remember doing Bahrain in one of the other F1 games, and the course layout was a little bit strange. But this one, I'm really happy with the layout they have. It seems pretty unique. Has a lot of has a couple areas that are some pretty fun sections to drive. Good couple turns, cut off about half a second just by hitting those corners correctly. Unfortunately, all that hard work kind of gets cut down a little bit with that lock up in the front right.
I am going to try quickly, well, maybe next race, I'm going to try to get my foot pedal information on the screen.
Yeah, so I couldn't figure out how to get the RPM and whatnot in this mode on the screen. I guess the wheel gives all the information, so I think it's when you're above. Oh, big lock up. The second place is there, but not to capitalize. That corner,
Very rough.
I can't seem to hit it correctly on a consistent basis, so.
Definitely having braking issues.
And then again, my tires are up at 102 degrees Celsius. Very hot. (105), and that raise in temperature is usually what causes your lockups to occur. If you get the temps too high, you'll get a lot of tire wear, a lot of lockup. However, the carcass temperature will definitely come down in the straights. Another lock up, this time in the rear. So I adjust the brake bias a little bit to the rear so I could try get less heat into those fronts. But you risk spinning your rear out on those corners where you have to kind of brake and turn in a little bit. Usually you don't want to do a combination of the two. You don't want to be braking and turning, or you lose grip. Watching back on this, I'm definitely locking up everywhere, and the AI should most definitely be jumping down my throat with the condition that I'm putting these tires in. Definitely like the evolution of the tires themselves, how you can see a change in performance even from lap to lap. So now I'm becoming a little bit overly cautious. Again, I'm losing about a second per lap. I was hoping to pull out more than a second gap from the car behind me. It doesn't seem to be looking like I'm able to get that. Decent turns here. Little rear spin. Still pulling in a pretty fast time here. Excellent couple corners. Late turn in on that corner. Loses me a couple tenths. There we go. Gain it back. So you can see as soon as I start getting a little bit more consistent, I end up pulling away. But it only takes one corner worth of mistakes, and then you start. Yeah, Giuliano Lacey putting in good times. Bit of a knock against me. Staying on the gas way too long. And then on the curb. I can tell I'm not putting...
Okay,
so
well, so much for a good time.
So this often happens for me. I'll be trying to put a good lap time in, and I end up looking at the delta time more than I am the racetrack, and it's usually not a great way to put in a great lap. You got to keep your eyes on the road. Long straightaway. Good turn in there. Temperatures are actually looking pretty decent. Come down now that I've not been locking up front left. So that's another contributing factor. You can see that my front left tire there is at 97 degrees, my front right at 92. That's a pretty big temperature difference. And by the time I get to this corner, because it's so hot, it's very easy to lock up that front left. Luckily I didn't there. You can see that I'm on a really good lap this time. Cut out about 1/7 of a second from my fastest time. Jumping that into 1 second times. It's a much better lap, a lot cleaner. And you can see it pays off. I don't even have eye-lot in my mirrors. There he is. He's only a little speck. Hitting that 100 mark. This is a pretty decent lap here.
That was a fast lap.
So a 144.8 isn't anything to call home about, but right now, with how much fuel is on board, I was pretty happy with it. You can see that I-lot's getting even further away.
Hit those corners a little bit.
Ideally, if
Also,
I keep up... Oh,
I'll be honest, I thought the AI would be pressuring me a lot more. So I might have to jack up the difficulty next race.
so, without giving any spoilers, I think that the AI was conserving a little bit.
I am making a fair amount of mistakes. I'm surprised the AI isn't punishing me for it, so...
The other challenging thing I've noticed about this
To go. One stop left in this strategy. Pit window will open in 3 laps time. Pit window opens in 3 laps.
sloppy corner. One thing I've noticed about this
Are slippery.
is that the fuel is set.
Stay off of... Wow. I am 1.5 seconds slower than that fast lap.
The fuel is set, and you can't adjust it before or after before the race or even during pit stops. However, you really have to manage your shifts and
Driver behind?
Island behind. Okay, the gap back is 2.9 seconds.
2.9 seconds. Pretty decent amount behind.
The time last lap was at 1 minute 46.4.
But yeah, as I was saying, the fuel you can see there on the wheel is plus 0.11 in the green, and that's a good number. But if you take too many laps pushing really hard to the limit, your fuel savings basically goes down, and you can kind of get in the red if you're not careful.
Be careful, we think you're going to start losing some tyre grip around now.
It's a good thing he said that. I did a real early break there. Down to third. Definitely easing off. Treating the tires with a little bit more respect here at the end. Definitely was punishing them at the start. Not really ideal for keeping the lifespan of my tires. So I should be coming into box here in the next couple laps. We're on lap 9 right now. Just trying to stretch that gap from the car behind.
Wide on those corners.
Yeah, not an ideal corner there. I'm also falling down from my lap time after the first two by about 0.2 of a second.
Teeny bit.
You can see how just treating the tires with a little bit more respect, other than right there. You can see the carcass number. That's the top number for each wheel, down at 97, 90 degrees, 88, and 91. If you treat the wheels with a little bit more respect, like I'm not doing right here, right now, but you can get the temperatures to fall down a little bit. But there, I jacked the surface temperatures up, which is going to make braking here a little bit more hard. Yeah. Those quick turns definitely get your temps up. Going very wide here. Losing a lot of time on these tires now. But I'll be honest, the The corners that I'm messing up are definitely what's getting my time up more than anything. Little wheel slip onto the straightaway. Looking decent. All right.
All right.
So they're not a crazy ways away. 10 seconds is pretty decent gap though. The other thing is I don't have a whole lot of experience doing pit stops. I wish I could just drive the car, but the way you do on the racetrack in the pits, but it kind of does like a half semi take over your car and let you do it, so a little bit strange. I wish there was a feature in the future games to just let you do the pit stops yourself. Big lock up at the front left. Tires are definitely suffering, and you can see my fuel conservation is coming down. Something I didn't notice, I didn't see that they had put the tire temperatures on the wheel HUD on the top right there. It's actually really good information. Alright, so coming into box here. I think I'm a little bit more gentle into the entrance of the pit lap. It's so easy to get a penalty if you don't brake hard enough. So very easy. I probably could have pushed that a little bit more. All right, and so this is, I think this is where the race really begins.
Exit now.
Okay, pit time, 5.7 seconds. Pretty cold tires.
That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops.
So now I'm on the yellow mediums. A little bit slower, but hopefully we'll have some lifespan.
P10, let's see where he will.
Now this is the scary part. Somehow, after that pit stop, I have negative 11 fuel. I have no idea what happened, but I somehow lost a ton of fuel after that pit stop. Negative 13 now even. Wow. So P10 right now, you can see that as I come along the straights, most of the cars are going to be hitting the pits. See if I can get the overcut. You can see them there, just ducking in. Last few cars. And luckily that puts me P1. But I'm in a bit of a danger mode with the fuel. I think it's clear sailing, but I need to figure out a way.
Is behind you. The gap behind us is 4.3 seconds. They're on fresh mediums. The time last lap was a 2:17.1. seconds.
Alright, pretty decent turns. Treating these yellow tires, the yellow mark tires, with a lot more respect than I did my first set. Needs to happen if I want them, but I'm just losing so much fuel in the negative 13s to 14s. I must have set, I don't know, I guess the fuel is set equal amongst all cars. You can't adjust them, so my driving style is just punishing the amount of fuel that I'm going through. Still very easy to light up the rears if you don't ease the gas. Another fastest lap. This particular setup is pretty loose on the rears. It's very easy to light up your back tires. And so you gotta find just that gentle amount that you can kind of nudge the car into where it needs to be going. Very nice lap time around these corners. Pretty tight. Lost a little time around that one. Kind of tiptoeing around the corner. Same with that one as well. But it's definitely helping. It's helping to bring my tire temps down. I always find it surprising that the brake temperature doesn't feed into the tire temp that much. Seeing how hot the brakes get, up to 800, sometimes 900 degrees Celsius. So I think it's near this point where I start cluing in that my fuel situation isn't ideal. Granted, it's only 0.14 of a lap, which isn't too bad. I can squeak it home at the end, but if I get a car on my tail, basically like giving up a position. Big lock up front left, not ideal. Temperatures skyrocketing up to 120.
It's supposed to go flat out through there.
Not really possible, unfortunately, to go flat out with the fuel load that I'm carrying. Another fastest lap.
That was the fastest lap of the race so far.
Pretty good. You can see I'm definitely getting a little bit more comfortable with the course at this point. Not sure why I have some of the video stutter kicking in. It's not too dominant. Ooh, a little bit of tire spin. So the cars aren't even visible in my rear mirror. Definitely doing well. that negative 17. I don't know if I knew about the fuel yet. It's creeping up. It's creeping up. Sooner or later, I'm going to notice
Driver
it.
behind.
Pilot behind. Our gap behind is 7.5 seconds. They're on fresh mediums. Their tyres are 3 laps old. The time last lap was a 1:45.1.
So I have a 7-second lead over iLot. I thought I had most definitely run away with this. I'm pulling out such a great lap. Such a great lead in this race. The back of my head, I'm thinking that the AI difficulty just isn't high enough. And more as I'm doing these laps, thinking how good I'm doing, I'm completely neglecting the fuel consumption. And that's one of the mistakes that I start making here more and more.
I'm not sure what that negative 18 on my dash is.
And there it is. Not realizing what the negative 18 is. And then I look, and
It says I don't have a lot of fuel. Kind of suspect of that.
Alright, so at this point, I start going into fuel management mode,
Bring that number back up.
and I start short shifting. And the house of cards begins to collapse in on itself.
Do some short shifting.
So what you can do to reduce the amount of fuel that you're consuming, short shifting is one thing. You don't let your RPM get as high before you shift. The other thing you can do is, as you enter a corner, you can ease off the gas far before you normally would. Again, you're not using all of the speed and all of the throttle. And by coasting, you use a lot less fuel as well. But unfortunately, that compiles over time. So you can't just do that for 2 or 3 corners and expect to be good on fuel. You have to do that for several laps throughout the corners, and you got to do it effectively and consistently. Otherwise,
So they have to take the personalized fuel strategy.
it's not going to make much of a difference. Unfortunately, my fuel strategy doesn't make a difference. All the cars are filled up with the same amount of fuel. It's my driving that's putting me into the danger zone, or something with the pit stop. I'm not too certain. I guess maybe I over revved it in the pits or something. I like the fact that you can hear the force feedback kind of kicking in as I hit the bumps down the straightaway. It's a little bit of a rough break point into the hairpin. I definitely treat Sector 1 pretty decently.
Deployed. The virtual safety car has been deployed. We need to keep a positive delta here. Slow down. Maintain a positive delta. Okay, slow down, slow down. Your delta is negative, which means you are too fast. Reduce your pace.
So the safety car, the virtual safety car is really strange.
VSC ending.
It
Going green. Maintain positive delta until the green flags.
it reverses your delta time on your wheel. So that safety car was absolutely critical. It basically cut down.
Driver behind? Driver behind?
Pilot is behind you. Okay, the gap behind is 11.0 seconds. They're on fresh mediums. Their tyres are 6 laps old. The time last lap was a 1 minute 44.9.
I basically lost 7 seconds of time. All the cars are supposed to lose time during a virtual safety car, but you kind of want to ride that limit. You want to go as fast as you're allowed to go, but if you push it too hard, you're going to incur a penalty, which isn't an ideal situation by any means. So ILOT's still 11 seconds back. Virtual safety car came out. Still looking good, though fuel, I've helped the fuel savings. I'm at a negative 0.10, 0.09. Actually doing fairly decent. Though there isn't a whole lot of laps left before I have to finish the race. And I'm not certain if they penalize you if you're under-fueled when you finish the race. Like if you finish and you're on an empty tank, I'm pretty sure in Formula 1 you get a penalty for that. You need to have something in the gas. I could be wrong though. I'm not too certain. Definitely tiptoeing around these corners now. Though the tire temps are looking good, I'm still very focused on the fuel. Lighting up the rears doesn't help.
It's struggling for rear grip.
The tire condition's pretty decent. I'm getting a little anxious, but you can see that the rear tires for some reason are slipping a little bit more. Maybe I'm just applying too much pressure to the throttle. You can't do a whole lot with engine modes in the Formula 2 cars, so I can't just drop my engine mode and start saving fuel. Got a little bit of a warning there for going too far out to the left. And very far out on that corner. That killed my time a lot.
I'm losing some tire grip.
I'm supposed to run these yellow marked tires till the end of the race, and managing them while keeping consistently quick lap times doesn't seem to be... I don't seem to be doing it very well. It's definitely a good turn there. So hard to apply the throttle without kicking that rear out. Nice turn in here. Very good turn in. Really happy with that, but still losing time.
It's getting stiff.
Now, I am driving in racing seat, but it's one of the play seats that kind of styles to the similar sitting position as a Formula car. Not used to having to sit in that position, and even just sitting in the chair and braking, you put a lot of pressure on your back, and even sim racing it, I find I use a lot of muscles. I need to relax a little bit more. And
All right. 9 laps left. 10 laps left. Let's bring her home.
I say let's bring her home as I light up the rears. One of my other careers around this particular corner, coming out of this corner, if you light them up kind of like I'm doing there, if you don't ease off right away, you can throw it into the wall really easily. So you can just see in the left rear mirror, it's just a speck, but iLot is visible now in that rear mirror. I mean, I'm not too far off my regular pace. I'm only at 1 or 2 tenths of a second slower than my regular hot laps. Fuel situation hasn't gotten much better. If anything, it's gotten a little bit worse. I've kind of started neglecting to short shift and coast brake. Now we're back at negative 15 because it's something I just didn't keep up with. Decent corner. At the delta time doesn't really reflect it very well. Rode the curb a teeny bit there. Didn't get as wide as I wanted.
Like beached myself.
Fuel is going even more critical. I don't know if I, at this point, stopped looking at it, or if I thought it would just be okay. Because I know the radio engineer didn't really say anything. And it's actually a little bit frustrating, because if I'm correct, a lot of the voiceovers are pertaining to the Formula 1 cars and not the Formula 2, so even like when they refer to practice, they call it P1. I guess maybe that's the correct terminology, but I know they're like, next session you should do this and this and this during practice, and there's only one practice. If I'm correct, I think that the game just assumes in a lot of the voiceover options that you're just driving an F1 car as opposed to the F2 one. So the F2 series, I guess it's not fair to say it's an afterthought, but the voiceovers, bad sliding turn. It's about a half-second loss there. Another big bad lockup. Those rear tires are really hot now.
Tire status.
Tire condition is still looking good.
Okay. Well,
They don't give a whole lot of information. I wish they gave a little bit more info about, if you're punishing a tire more on like the front or the rear or the left or the right side. I think that would be really good information, but
Downshifted a little bit too much that one.
I'm losing a lot of time. This lap, 1.5 seconds out of my fastest. It's an awful amount of time to lose. Little wide. Though, still pulled out a decent couple corners there. Not perfect, but at least consistent. No slide this time. Drifting a Formula 2 car definitely is a poor way to increase your lap time, even though it is kind of fun. These cars are not designed to kick the rears out and do a Tokyo drift. Too much overturn there. And again, I'm losing so much time. 1.1 second delta right now to my fastest. And my fuel situation is bad. Being in the lead, great, but overall everything's just pointing to a not great situation. Lap 26. I think there's 34 laps, something around there. You can see Ilot little ways off there in the distance. At this point, I'm just trying to focus on putting decent lap times down. Just trying to drive consistent, you know, don't push it too hard. Try to keep that delta in the green. When I think what I should be doing is, instead of trying to get that delta in the green, I should be short shift, coast, watch the tire temperatures, and mitigate the amount of time I'm losing around these corners. I have a very bad habit of pushing a car all the time non-stop, and in this game, fuel saving and just management overall of your tires and fuel are just really important. Something I'm not very good at. Oh, running wide. Somehow it didn't penalize me for that, of going off track limits. Sometimes it's really strict about where you go off, and other times it doesn't seem to care. I'm fairly confident I went completely off the track there. Maybe I kept the right side of the car, or sorry, the left side of the car on the track. 0.3 off my fastest. It's not a terrible lap. On to lap 27. Hitting that curb a little bit hard. Ilot's still a ways away. Into 5th, doing pretty decent lap times. Nice tight turn there. Saves a lot of time if you can hit it like that. I lose so much time around that corner, just having to be so gentle around it. Ooh, that was a very, very bad spin up. I thought I controlled it and tried to go again, and I lit the wheels up twice.
Driver behind.
Pilot behind. The gap behind us is 4.1 seconds.
Oh, shit.
They're on old mediums. Their tyres are 14 laps old. The time last lap was a 1:43.9.
So I went from a beautiful 8 to 11 second gap down to a 4 second gap. I start discovering that iLot is beginning to catch me, and mistakes like that are not going to help me keep the lead.
I didn't see him. I'm hearing shit.
Getting very panicked. Not too many laps left, but still more than enough for him to cause some problems. And there you can see him in the mirror, just a speck, starting to apply a little pressure. Fuel situation not getting any better. Decent around these corners. Now, I have a really bad habit. When I'm doing well for a while, and I start getting put under pressure,
Driver behind.
Pilot is behind you. The gap to the car behind is 2.5 seconds.
when I...
Old mediums. Their tyres are 15 laps old.
I-
The time last lap was a 1:44.1.
I start putting on, I start applying a little bit more pressure to myself. I try brake a little later.
Alright, so they're catching up pretty fast.
I try to go on the accelerator a little bit more. And whenever I do all of those things, I end up either missing brake points or causing my car to squirrel out as I come outside of a corner. Basically, I need to work on kind of the mental game.
We're leading our teammate by 19.0 seconds.
So there I see the fastest lap, Callum iLot, driver behind me, and he is blisteringly fast. He put the fastest time of the race in, and he's closing in the gap. And I've had all this time to do fuel management, and I just haven't done it. I kind of got the blinders on right now. I'm focused way too much on the fact that he's right behind me. The real tricky thing about these rear mirrors is that big back wing. Unless you're turning, you can't see who's behind you on the straightaways, which is the perfect time to be checking your mirrors. And you can see them really well around the corners, which is the inopportune time to check your mirrors. So you kind of just have to use your peripheral to, and as you're turning into a corner, if you can see the glint of the car, use that information to help inform you. There, I pushed it too deep into the corner. I was hoping I could stretch this out a little bit more. And again, iLot
Driver behind.
puts in another fast lap.
Pilot behind. Our gap behind is 1.8 seconds. They're on old mediums. Their tyres are 17 laps old. The time last lap was a 1:43.6.
Getting a little scary. Good turn in there. Still losing time though. And you can see iLot there, a little bit more prevalent in my rear mirrors. He's not filling them up yet, so but there he is. Already pretty big and visible. Got a little bit more video stutter. Hopefully I'll be able to iron that out in the next videos. Going on to lap 31. Did a really fast lap this time. Kept it together. About a half second faster than my fastest.
Just a reminder, we are critical on fuel, probably a lap or so short. We don't need to risk a DNF chasing records, so think about going down to mix 1 and lifting early into the corners.
So this is a little frustrating. There is no way of adjusting down to mix 1.
Go to mix 1.
There's no way of adjusting your fuel, so it's a little frustrating that the AI suggests something that you just can't do. Or I guess the engineer suggests something. It's like you're racing and it's be like, yes, make sure to do this thing you're not able to do. It's like, okay, well, it's a little frustrating. So I don't think they'll ever fix that, but definitely something noted that I wasn't able to change. And I'm still very confused as to how I got into red so hard. So at this point, Callum Ilott is breathing down my neck. You can see him very clearly in the mirrors. And I'm starting to suffer. I'm having to save fuel, save my tires. And I know the AI is pretty they're fairly consistent with their lap times. They're not like a human where, you know, lap times may vary from several tenths, but they're still pretty decent.
Driver behind.
As I say, as he attempts an overtake, I defend to the inside.
The time last lap was a 1 minute 43.5.
And he pushes right past me. And gets DRS. You can see that wing opening. Not an opportune time. I didn't think he was that close yet. You get right up on his tail. And now the question, can I take him back now that he's in the lead? You can see he locks up, but he locks up so hard, I nudge him, and I damage the front left of my wing. Making my turn-ins that much more difficult. However, I'm close enough for DRS, so it allows me to close the gap. But that little bit of performance damage isn't what I needed at this point. So now you can say I'm pushing real hard just to try keep up with him. Hard dive to the inside. It doesn't pay off. And I'm bingo on fuel. But luckily for me, it's the checkered flag. And I'm able to make it across the line just at the end.
Well done. We're really happy with the podium here.
So what I thought was a runaway first place, I ended up coming second, so definitely happy the AI was able to capitalize on all my mistakes.
Have won it, and what a great race it was.
Damn.
And I have to wonder, Davide Valsecchi, just what set them apart from the competition here.
I think they kept a cool head. That's why they won today. Smooth, steady, everything bad that happened to them, they handle it calmly and professionally. That's what let them focus on getting the best out everything else. The car, the strategy, they managed to keep out of trouble the whole way round.
Looks like they're on their way out onto the podium now, and what a result this is. A popular one with the crowd as well. Great stuff to see the Charus team on top here today. And now, let's take a look at the driver's standings. Callum Ilott takes over the lead of the Drivers' Championship after that excellent result. And now, Davide Valsecchi, let me ask you, who is your driver of the day?
I think it's got to be Sean Galeon. He's not always spectacular, but he quietly gets the job done, and that's the case today.
And now a look at the team standings. Charus move to the top of the table. After all this drama, you'd be mad not to join us for the next race. We hope to see you there.
Damn.
Take care.
Alright, let's view some highlights.
Overall, I thought this was a pretty good session. The one issue I did have was I didn't manage my tires super well, and I ended up starting to make mistakes by the end of the race, which allowed Callum Ilott to catch up to me and eventually pass me. So I only took second in the first race. I thought I was going to run away with it, but he definitely caught up. I made a mad dash, as you can see there at the end of the video. But it was overall a good race. I didn't expect there to be two races, so it kind of caught me off guard. But first race I ended up doing pretty decently, so I was happy with the result. Still pretty confident that after Sakhir, I'll up the difficulty. But with race 1 under my belt, on to race 2.